since the very beginning of the expo 22 years ago. And this was even before the show Ancient Aliens. We had an Ancient Secrets panel, and a lot of people who are now on the show Ancient Aliens first spoke at Conscious Life Expo. We like to think we originated the show here, but we're so interested in these things. And our speakers always bring something new and dynamic. Even though it's ancient and old, there's always new discoveries. It's so fascinating, and it helps us with what we're living through in these days, and knowledge and information and wisdom. So now we're going to introduce our host, who is also the host of Fade to Black on Game Changer Network, and you have seen him on many other documentaries, and he's now exploring himself in these places. Last year he actually went twice to Egypt and also to Peru. So let's give a warm welcome to Jimmy Church.
Holy crap, good evening. Good evening, come on, let's go. This is Friday night, Los Angeles, Conscious Life Expo. Yeah, it's me. And we had an earthquake today. How cool was that? You know, who here, just a show of hands before we get started. Who lives in California? Just hands. So about half the room. Okay, put your hand. Who's not from California? Oh, really? Okay, now let's go to the next show of hands. First earthquake, hands up. Pretty cool, wasn't it? And here's the thing. I was standing there. I was standing there, and the earthquake goes off. I'm with Doug Taylor, and he's sitting next to me, and we both feel it. Now, this is the crazy part. The room, you knew who wasn't from California. Doug goes, he didn't even look up, 4.6. Conscious Life Expo. It never gets old. Every year, I get to host this thing and MC it. Every year on Friday night, we do this. We've been doing this for 10 years, doing the Ancient Secrets panel. And to circle a date on a calendar and have it means so much to all of you, for you to be here with me. It's a frigging honor and a privilege. I want to cry. So, thank you for being here first. Give yourselves a round of applause. It's just amazing to me. Number two, this is the Conscious Life Expo. We have a huge staff. We work on this all year long. First off, please thank Serena Wright Taylor. Where's Serena? She introduced me tonight. Where's Serena? Did she disappear already? There she is, Serena Wright Taylor, the producer of this event. Let's thank Q and the staff of the Conscious Life Expo. This is night number one of an amazing dynamic weekend. The entire team, Dennis in the back that has been running and working with me, the audio crew, Matt, everybody, please thank the staff here at the Conscious Life Expo. You know, we're going to get this started. We've got a long night in front of us. We're going to get to the secret knowledge. What Serena just said, and I love that I've got a little furry friend going, preach it, church, preach it, preach it. It's being the seeker of knowledge. And when Serena mentioned that I've managed to get out of the country last year, I went to 8 countries. 8 in 2023. And I am the guy that's always, look at the guests that we have in this panel, and I am always the one asking them, so man, what's the secret? Who built the Great Pyramid? So what's the secret, man? How are they getting here? What's the, Puma Punku? What's up with that? Göbekli Tepe, what's up? Nobody says Göbekli Tepe better than Mr. Collins, who is with us tonight. But now I'm that guy, and it's now changes my perspective. And people are asking me, how have I changed? And I've come away from this with more questions than answers. And we're going to try to get to all of that tonight. Are you guys ready? This is an all-star panel. Okay, now, and not in any particular order. Caroline Corey's with us tonight, director, filmmaker. You know, my favorite thing to do, I'm not kidding, is I wrap the show, I get some food, and just sit wherever you want. There's Caroline right there. She can edit a film, but she can't read. My favorite thing to do is I wrap the show, I'll get something cool on TV, and then I get the text from Caroline. So what's up? It's the coolest thing. We're close friends. I respect her so much. Her films speak for themselves. Everybody, please say hello to Caroline Corey. Next, #1 book on Amazon right now. Right now, Seeker of Ancient Knowledge and Wisdom. And somebody I love to argue with because he's the absolute very best. He's got a book out right now he co-wrote with Billy Carson. Everybody, give it up for Mr. Matt LaCroix in the house. Every night I end my shows, I take commercials and everything. I always go Beckley Tappy. Right? Okay, everybody knows it. I don't say it. Like Andrew Collins. Andrew Collins flew over from the UK. Yeah, I knew it. Andrew Collins. Now, Ancient Aliens. Okay, Ancient Aliens represents, they have, that show, I always felt from the beginning that the show was made for me. And when you see something like that, it resonates with everybody. Everybody's thinking the same things. The team behind that is with us tonight. And so let's go one at a time. With Ancient Aliens in Season 1, earthfiles.com, the one and only, Linda Moulton Howe. Before I went to Egypt the first time, I'm crossing a street in Beverly Hills with Linda and William Henry. And we hit the crosswalk button. And William says to me, he goes, Jimmy, you need to come to Egypt with me. I said, I do. I want the secrets. And we're crossing the street, and he said, you've got to do this trip. And we have teased each other a lot over the years, not only about that, but because his knowledge of Egypt is second to none. His knowledge of contact and who we are and where we are going is second to none. He's somebody that I respect, and he's also the best dressed man at the Conscious Life Expo in 2024. Mr. William Henry is with us tonight. Next up, of course, he needs no introduction because he is still currently employed by the MOD. Secret agent. Mr. Nick Pope is with us tonight. Now, this is the point where, because I've got a juice card and I'm allowed to play it once in a while, but when you play the juice card disappears. But I'm willing to play my juice card tonight and say, Mr. Danny Sheehan, come up on this stage. I want you part of this panel. Come on. Come on. Come on. That's it. My juice card is played. I can't. Are you cool with it? Are you prepared? Everybody, let's talk some ancient alien secrets. Let's go. Give it up. Hey, Andrew, is your mic on? Okay, give me a Göbekli Tepe.
Göbekli Tepe.
You can kill this mic. Oh, man. I want to kind of start here. because there has been a general conversation. This goes to everybody on this panel right now. And looking back, I think everybody's been a guest on the show in the last year. William last week, Daniel last week, Matt, Nick, you're always on. Linda was on 2 nights ago, right? Okay. William said, Jimmy, I'm going to be on an airplane. I can't do it. So I'm going to have I'm going to have him on the show as soon as I can. But here's the thing: the subject, Andrew, that is repeated now, and I'm getting this feeling that as we move through knowledge, the conversation is, are they us? Is it us that is visiting us? Who are the real aliens here? And is alien the wrong word? And when we jump back into ancient history and look at these sites, it certainly seems that this has been going on for a very long time. Is our knowledge level, are we understanding so much now that it's okay for us to look at, instead of little green men, that these ancient visitors may have been us in the distant past?
I think that we have to look at the fact that almost certainly aliens are cleverer than us. I think that they could be not just thousands, but possibly millions, if not billions of years in advance of our own position in technology, consciousness, and understanding. And one of the things that we are only just beginning to comprehend the importance of is quantum entanglement. That's the idea that whole systems of particles can be linked together and speak to each other, quite literally, and that they are linked instantaneously, no matter how far away these systems of particles get. I mean, one can be in one side of the universe and the other can be in the other, and they will still do the same dance together. Now, this can become a explanation for what we call telepathy and possibly even mind over matter. Plus, it can occur outside of normal space-time, because if it's happening on a subatomic level, then it is outside of what we call linear time. There's cyclical time, but that's different to linear time, which we, look at our watches and see our lives passing by because of it. That doesn't exist on a subatomic level. Now, we're beginning to realise, and there was papers and studies only in the last year that say that quantum entanglement governs consciousness. And if that's the case, then consciousness is something that's not only individual amongst us, but can quite clearly be collective. Carl Jung talked about the collective consciousness, and we're now beginning to understand that quantum entanglement can do that. Now, if we are beginning to understand this for the first time, then our alien friends must have known this millions of years ago and must be using it. And if it is behind telepathy and mind over matter, then they can very easily use that to give us information, possibly even to control our minds and where we are going.
Can I jump in for a second? Let me stop you right there, because the point that I think takes it a step further is that communication is in the now.
Yeah.
We always talk about the speed of light, and nothing can go faster than the speed of light in radio waves. Entanglement is the speed of now.
Yeah.
So that's how communication and information could be shared from one side of the universe to the other now.
Instantaneously. And also the important thing is that what it means is that aliens, or even ourselves in the future, or if we want in the past, can still communicate with us in the here and now. I know this is very difficult to get your head around, but just remember, the past, the present, and the future are all the same on a subatomic level, and that changes everything.
Thank you for that. Andrew can't say go Beckley Tubby. Come on, just
Go Beckley Tubby. It's not how the Turkish people pronounce it. It's how I pronounce it in London.
But see, and here's the crazy part about this, and we're going to go through this with all of our panelists right now, is that that's exactly what science is trying to get the world to understand. Entanglement, 11 dimensions, the multiverse, These conversations, which were science fiction ideas so many years ago, but today they want us to wrap our head around something like entanglement. Well, that checks a lot of boxes with these issues that we have right now with ET, doesn't it?
Well, it does, and as I said, in many ways it changes everything, because what it means is that the aliens don't actually have to come to this planet to advance our evolution. They can do it remotely from wherever they are. I mean, the other side of the universe, possibly even, in another universe. Maybe they are in parallel dimensions. Maybe they are us in the future. We don't know.
Yeah. So, and Caroline, let me flip it over to you for a second, because your I don't want to speak for you, but your mission in life, your bliss, has been to merge consciousness and science.
Yep.
That's it, right? And we're seeing that happen right in front of us right now. But is it an indication of our ancient past being us, and that is what is being shown to us?
Yeah, I mean, that could be one theory. It could be that they're us and from the future.
Can we bring up Caroline's mic, please?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's several things. I don't think it's just one thing. It's never one thing, right? So, I think one theory that they could be us in the future. Another theory is like what Andrew was saying, that we are communicating with them faster than the speed of light. Speaking of science, I usually talk about that in my lecture. There's a German scientist that discovered the correlation between the DNA and scalar waves. And as you know, scalar waves travel across the universe faster than the speed of light, across the universe. So if we are human DNA, like he's saying, this means that our DNA, our brain, can literally transfer back and forth faster than the speed of light.
Linda Moulton Howe is evidence of that, by the way. So,
and so it could be that we are communicating with them instantaneously. It could be that they are us in the future. And it also could be that they can transfer their consciousness, even their bodies, I want to say, also from one dimension to another, and just appear in our spectrum. And that's when we see them literally, physically, or half materially. So it's not just one thing, it's all of the above, in my opinion.
Here's my point about your work, is that there are so many out there that don't stop and smell the roses and observe what's going on with them, and whether it's synchronicities or deja vu or something in the sky, right? They don't stop and do that. There is an explanation behind the fact, right? The fact is a simple thing. It happened on this day, I saw this. Okay, that's the fact. Now let's get to the truth. What is behind that? What is the truth of what was seen and so many don't care. And it's going on right around them. And that's why science and this community need to continue to merge. And you've got to continue on your mission. I'm being very serious.
In fact, I'm working on the next film, actually 2 films, the Superhuman Part 2, which also demonstrates all sorts of technologies with the mind, with the brain, being able to transfer frequencies across the universe faster than the speed of light, and also A Terror in the Sky Part 2.
Oh, right on. Right on.
So we talk about portals, wormholes, and basically the network of portals and wormholes around the planet, around every planet actually, and how they're all coherent with each other, and that's how we can transfer from portal to portal also faster than the speed of light.
Caroline Corey, thank you. Nick Pope, I'm going to ask you a question in front of this entire audience. When did you cash your last check from the MOD?
Last week. I'm not still on the payroll. I mean, they just occasionally give me like 3 properties in Soho or something. I'm kidding. I just get my regular Illuminati paycheck.
Sorry it's late this week, Nick. We'll have it.
Talk to accounts.
Nick, are you surprised to hear these conversations that are happening not only in the media and the news about what is visiting us are time travelers from our past, are time travelers from our future? Was this ever discussed at the MOD? Is this something that has been pursued and discussed?
Well, look, the time travel program was down the corridor from me, so I can't really talk about that. But no, again, I'm kidding. It doesn't surprise me. We did not research that. There are very few. I'm not really aware that there's much government study of time travel. Perhaps there should be. There's not actually that much scientific and academic study of it. Professor Ronald Mallett is one of the few physicists really doing some work on it. And for those not familiar, do check out his work, Ronald Mallett. But it doesn't surprise me. I think these are conversations that we need to have. And what's good about the whole transition of fringe to mainstream that we've seen, certainly with the subject of UFOs, is that it's brought these other things along with it. And even the preliminary assessment of the phenomenon conducted by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence and published in June 2021 said in relation to UAP, there is not going to be a single neat solution to this. And I think this is the conversation we're having here, because none of these things are mutually exclusive. If we're being visited by extraterrestrials, that doesn't mean that there can't be simultaneously time travelers from the future or from the past. It doesn't mean that there can't be something intruding and visiting from other dimensions. These things can be happening in parallel. And the more science advances and isn't afraid to have the difficult conversations, the more we will be getting into things like parallel universes, the multiverse, and such like. And I should just do a shout out for the Galileo Project as being a forum where perhaps science and academia come together with some of this other, certainly the UFO field. And I should declare an interest. I'm not a scientist myself, but alongside people like
Avi Loeb.
Avi Loeb is the head of the Galileo Project, but non-scientists who sit as affiliates are people like Chris Mellon, Lou Elizondo, and myself. Gary Nolan is a scientist who is in Galileo Project. Tim Galladay. So there's a lot of things going on right now, and I welcome this. And a few years ago, all this would have been just dismissed as crazy talk. Now people like Michio Kaku are actively studying things like the search for the hidden dimensions at the Large Hadron Collider. And I saw just last week, of course, they're now talking about future particle accelerator as being orders of magnitude above the Large Hadron Collider. So very exciting stuff that hopefully will unlock the secrets of the universe, though not till 2070.
Nick Pope, everybody. Nick. Danny, I want to swing this over to you before I come back over to this side, because it seems that things are hidden in plain sight. This is the Ancient Secrets panel. And when you go to an ancient site and you look at something that's megalithic and you're looking at it and you're touching it and you see it for yourself, you have to back up and immediately go, what the fuck? You just do. It doesn't make any sense. There is just no way that the ancients had a technology to move these blocks, to carve these stones, to design this astronomy, astrology, and engineering, and then forget it. And then today, we can't do it, and of course, we know that we can't. And you see this, it seems like it's in plain sight. It's right in front of us. Somebody is trying to tell us something. Do you feel that way? And are the ancients just us?
Well, it's kind of a strange position that I'm in right now, because we're actually in Washington, D.C. regularly meeting with people in the Senate Intelligence Committee, in their staff, in the House Oversight Committee, and then meeting with the Inspector General in the Defense Department and the intelligence community, having these conversations with them, which is kind of extraordinary. I mean, we've been having these gatherings annually, and now quarterly. You know, we're having more and more of these gatherings, and I've been doing this since I first started representing Dr. John Mack back in '94. But I'd been involved in the discussions in Washington as early as 1977, and that we now find ourselves, like with Lou Elizondo, or discussing things with Dave Grush. You know, when we're sitting with the Inspector General in a classified setting, and they're sitting there asking Lou Elizondo, you know, what has he discovered? And it was interesting, because we've got, you know, full colonels sitting there with in full uniform around the table in these kind of classified settings, and these conversations are taking place. That one of them actually asked, say, well, what is your best judgment of what these really are? And Lou said, well, you know, the most of the people that have been involved in doing the actual professional investigation of these things in government circles are of the opinion that they're extraterrestrial. And one of the guys said, extraterrestrial? Are you saying from like some other planet? And he said, yes, extraterrestrial. And he said, and then he said, but of course they could be extra dimensional. At which point the guy said, extra dimensional? You know, like, well, he didn't even know what that was. And then he said, then Lou said, well, you know, and then of course it's possible they're extra temporal. They may be actually from the future, because you know, we can discuss in a classified setting here, you know, the experiments that are being done with actual potential time travel, in the kind of work that's being done on this right now. And if we're in the process of doing this right now, if in fact some other star system that's 1 billion years older than we are has had another 1 billion years to work on this, and we're knocking on the door of it right now, it could be possible that they could actually be our human species, having gone out into the galaxy and now coming back to us. And these are discussions that are going on now.
But did they ask about Giorgio's hair? Because that would be the indication, and it sounds like, right, I'm being funny, ha.
Yeah.
But are they paying attention to what the public is doing? Are they watching Ancient Aliens? Are they watching programming on this?
No.
Are they aware of the public's interest?
No, well, they're aware of the public interest, but they view it as kind of an adversary threat.
Right.
Because it's out from under their control. And that this is a set of discussions, because remember the statute that was drafted, the 64-page statute that we're going to be discussing in the workshop tomorrow too, is 64 pages, and it is the controlled disclosure plan. And that what they're trying to do is get a handle on this whole discussion so that they can control it. They're extremely concerned about what they keep referring to as potential catastrophic disclosure. And we keep inquiring of like, what do they mean by catastrophic? What is it they think can happen here? And it's not really so much the impact that it may have on the economy or other things. I think that they're really afraid of the fact that they've been knowing about this for a long time, and they've been concealing it, and they've been lying about it, and they're extremely concerned that if they have to fess up and acknowledge how much lying they've done about it and how much investigation they've actually done about it, going to sites like this, you know.
Well, isn't it time? I'm going to listen to this crowd erupt. Isn't it time to just rip off the Band-Aid? Shouldn't we just rip off the Band-Aid? I mean, that's the real discussion. It seems like we just beat around the bush.
No, I think that the conversations that we've been having, like, you know, as you know, I was representing the New York Times in the Pentagon Papers case, and when we were having the face-to-face discussions with the Justice Department people who were in court trying to get an injunction to prohibit us from revealing all 47 volumes of the Pentagon Papers about the Vietnam War, Whitney North Seymour, who was the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York, kept insisting that if any of the information in the 47 volumes were made public, it would have catastrophic consequences for the national security of the United States. And I kept saying things like, what? Like, what are we talking about? And he said, well, I can't really tell you because you don't have the adequate security clearances. And then Judge Gerfine said, well, you can at least tell me. And he said, no, I'm sorry, we can't tell you either. And so the fact of the matter is, what they're concerned about, in my judgment, having seen me across the table from them, and so, is they're concerned about revealing what it is, the lengths they've gone to lie about this and deceive people about it. And then one of them actually said to me is that we're concerned that if in fact this cover-up that's gone on is revealed, the depths of it and the lengths to which people have gone to protect the information, it's going to be the great granddaddy of all conspiracies. And therefore, everybody is going to lose complete confidence in it.
That's right. The longer it goes on, the worse it gets. We all heard from our parents when we were a child, and your parents looked at you and said, just tell me the truth and it'll be all right. Right? But you don't. You're like, no, I need to push, and it only gets worse, right? It's time to rip off the Band-Aid. Linda Moulton Howe. Linda, how you doing? Welcome. And do you know Linda flew 400 miles, but it took her 18 hours today, but she made it. Linda, welcome. The ancient part of this, is it just hidden in plain sight? Have the ancients preserved that knowledge for us to see?
Well, when I was thinking about the panel title, I went to a notebook and just wrote down some of the first memories that I have of being introduced by people who were working in the CIA, the NSA, the DIA, they really were, talking to me about what they knew concerning what we would say ancient aliens and the interaction between them and our Earth and this solar system. And so I'm just going to share with you some rough notes that I made for a timeline that goes back in my memory at first to the year 1983. And that was a pivotal year when I signed a contract with Home Box Office to do a documentary for them that would be called UFOs, the ET Factor. And I was working on that and going to see a lot of people. And one of them at that time, that on a night in Los Angeles, was with Bob Emenegger. And Bob Emenegger was a producer, but he was also working with a colleague, and they were interacting definitely with the CIA. He told me that himself. And he had produced both a book and a documentary, UFOs, Past, Present, and Future. And in that documentary that they had done was the first and only time that Jacques Vallée appeared to talk about the work that he was doing investigating mutilated animals. And that led to a very interesting discussion that I had with Jacques Vallée about the hard craft, hard material sciences side of this. And he knew about UFOs past, present, and future, and Bob Emenegger and Alan Sandler because of that documentary. And I ended up at Bob Emenegger's house in Los Angeles back in 1983, in which he had a big room where he had a lot of file cabinets, and he took me over to one, opened it, pulled out, and it was a letter with a presidential seal on it. It was signed Richard M. Nixon. And it was a letter that was related to the work that he and Sandler, who was working for the CIA, I've talked with Sandler about that at the time too, that they knew that extraterrestrial biological entities and extraterrestrial artificial intelligence were not something hypothetical. They were here. And that Bob Emenegger told me that night at his house after dinner, he said, if you want to learn more about ETs on our planet, the moon, and in our solar system, I suggest that you do some reading about the Assyrians, Sumerians, and Anunnaki. And
This was 1983?
1983.
Wow.
1988, 5 years later, a lot had happened. The government basically blocked my contract with HBO because one of the executives insisted that I had to bring the President of the United States, the Vice President, the Secretary of State, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, or she would not approve money for the documentary that I had signed the contract. And it was only 2 or 3 years later that I was working at CNN on a project, and they wanted me to do a project there, a documentary, and the producers were excited, and I had given them a script, and they had called me in for a meeting and said, Linda, it's a go, we're going to do this. And I thought, wow, this is going to replace the block on HBO. And the very next morning, after this very exciting meeting with these producers at CNN, because I wanted to approach everything from a news, hard, investigative point of view, one of the producers called me into his office and said, we don't know what's happened. We have no idea. Everything was a go. Your work is great. I love the script. But somebody in finance KO'd it. And as I understand, that has happened 1 billion times in so many directions in the United States, where things that were really going to try to deal with facts related to another intelligence or many others here, they get KO'd, like what happened. So.
Are those your original notes from 1983?
No, from today.
You wrote those today.
But I'm giving you my.
I thought I was walking out of here with something really cool. If I'd have been a little wrinkled by the time I got them out of the door.
Well, what happened in 5 years later in 1988, I got a call from a man who said, I work in the Naval Research Lab in White Sands Proving Ground in New Mexico. And he said, I've seen your documentary, A Strange Harvest, and he said, I've got something you need to see. And he said, I'd like to come to Denver because I don't want to talk about this on the phone and I don't want to write it in the mail. And so he came to visit me. And he had notes that had been taken from a discussion with a physicist who was doing subcontract work with the Naval Research Lab at White Sands.
Linda, can I get you to speak into the microphone?
And his notes from the White Sand physicist were about the physicist's 6 trips to Mars. And this was 1988. And in one of the most compelling discussions I've had, because this was a scientist talking to me about a scientist that they had been working together at the Naval Research Lab at White Sands. But the physicist was not employed by the NRL. The physicist was being protected, but was doing work inside a base underground on Mars. 1988, the man who met with me said, "I'm going to try to get you a document about this." Eventually, a theme has become so clear in my work. 1988 was the strongest first-hand statement, but today I have others. There is a base. It's either large or has multiple sections. It is under Gale Crater, and we have a whole presence there. And that the theme that has developed over the last, especially the last 5 years for me, is that we have been trying to make sure that we had development on the planet Mars before we ever open up the truth on Earth. And that right now I have another source who says that they have been multiple times to the underground base on Mars. And that in December of 2022, Chaim Eshed, who was the director of the Israeli satellite program, some of you may have seen and read this book. I urge you to get it in an English edition. It was written in Israel. The book is called The Universe Beyond the Horizon. And I did a Earth Files YouTube channel interview with a colleague of his about the book and what it was that he was hoping would happen. And it was, I put in the epilogue of this book what I hope that people will do 2 + 2 = 4. And what are the photos in the close of this Chaim Eshed book, a man highly skilled and responsible for the development of one of the very important satellite programs on the planet. He has photographs. I've seen them all. And the photograph that really sticks out is a hill approximately 35 or 40 feet high. And on the top, there is a ring like a fort. And you can see in the ring that there are individual, as if you would take mud and form the mud into bricks. And they make the top. And he has this photograph, along with others, in his epilogue. And, quote, "Humans have been in touch with extraterrestrials for years," close quote. If you take and combine that with a discussion that some of you have heard me describe in my Earth Files YouTube channel, and it has to do with the meeting December of 1999, of which all of these have been threads. And that was put together by a man who worked for the World Bank, who had a good friend who was analyst at the Defense Intelligence Agency and was retiring. And the man from the World Bank had met me at a conference in San Francisco, had asked me to sit down. He had a lot of information about UFOs and ETs on our planet here now. And we talked about this whole huge question, why? Why? Why can't the governments of this planet just simply tell the truth? And that's why he had me meet with the Defense Intelligence Agency analyst. It was on the East Coast. It was a very intelligent place. The DIA guy had complete control. I said, wherever you want to meet. And as we sat down in a place that he had picked out, that had a lot of white noise from ships he looked up at the sky and he said, I don't think our satellites over this region can penetrate this white noise. Meaning, he was worried that even our discussion would be monitored and recorded. And it was 7 hours, and in those 7 hours, it is more important today, in February of 2024, to share with you what he said, than it was to receive that information and not know what I could do with it back in 1999. And if you boil it all down, those 7 hours, he started out with a geophysical Q&A to see what I knew about the size and diameter of our planet. Linda, do you know what the circumference of the Earth is? Fortunately, I knew it was around 25,000 miles. He said, what about the diameter through? I said, I think it's 8,000 miles. And then he asked me questions in an Aristotelian way about what could be between the surface of Earth and down to the core. And had I ever considered what scientists knew then, but it was not something that was talked about much, that there were huge, gigantic caverns inside between the surface of our Earth down to the core. And we know today, in one of those huge caverns in our own planet, there is a mountain that is equal to Mount Everest. And those caverns have been being used by extraterrestrial, biological, and artificial intelligences for eons. But those are just the ETs that inhabit inside of our planet. There are many, many others who prefer to be on the surface where it's warm, and there you get to the whole Mesopotamian area. And there is another group that has to do with the Greys, and they've always preferred being inside the mountains. And he gave me a very long and very, very valuable education from his point of view about what he knew was the distribution of ETs inside the planet, in the solar system. I came away with a whole new way of looking at everything, and that one of the next big pieces that you have to keep in your mind's eye when you're considering why can't we be told the whole truth, when there are people that are writing books like Wars of the Anunnaki, Nuclear Self-Destruction in Ancient Sumer, Chris Hardy, PhD, I've bet and talked with her, she lives in France. And if you want to read a book that will give you a whole new look at this planet in the past and why we might be the difficult Homo sapien sapien population that we are now, read her Wars of the Anunnaki. And then also keep in mind that physicist John Brandenburg has been asked and has presented to NASA and has written a book called Death on Mars about what was equivalent to 2 thermonuclear hydrogen explosions over the Cydonia region, where, what is there? There is a face or a head that is carved approximately a mile long and 3/4 of a mile wide. And recently, out of all these threads that have been coming to hit me as the same kind of story that is beginning to focus, that head on Mars, if you look back through anything in Mesopotamia, one of the closest illustrations that comes out of sandstone and carvings would be the Phoenicians. And the Phoenicians were closely related to the Sumerians, and the Anunnaki may or may not have been a mutual relationship, but at least they shared the same view of a cosmic universe that had what in it? Elohim. And the Elohim, to all those groups, was the interface between the matter world and the consciousness of the universe. my own feeling right now is that what we are about to go through in a revolution is that Homo sapiens sapien is the product of DNA manipulation of already evolving primates, and it was done by extraterrestrials. But I would rather see all of us face up to everything that our government and other governments know that leads up to the question, who are allies, who are true allies in 2024 of Homo sapien, and who are here only for the manipulation for their gain. All of that is playing out. And if the complexity that I now see continues, and I was working inside of the CIA, DIA, Joint Chiefs, and JSOC, I probably wouldn't want to have to deal with it being opened up either. But the truth is, you guys, would it ever be possible in a universe like this one that 8 billion consciousnesses and souls would continue going into time for the foreseeable future, living a gigantic lie? It just makes no sense to me at the largest cosmic level. And that's, to me, when Grush and others who are telling the truth, and they get up to certain subjects and they can't go there. It has to do with, I think, that there are ETs who do not want introduction. That's what Chaim Eshed said in an interview. The introduction of Earth humans to the extraterrestrials, which are many, it is up to the ETs, not to us. That can be argued. One last sentence to think about. Last week, I received information from a person who had worked for one of the intel agencies, is now 67 years old and retired, and they're still afraid to be found out. But he said this in a specific proton mail to me. Linda, this cannot go on beyond 2027. What's coming?
Wow. Wow. Linda Moulton, everybody. Linda just had her birthday. Say happy birthday to Linda Moulton House. Happy, when I grow up, I want to be Linda. Matt LaCroix, congratulations. #1 bestseller on Amazon right now. And the book, Eden, by the way, it's kind of strange how the universe works, isn't it? We're sitting here talking about this subject on this panel. It's a microphone. Matt, you speak into the microphone.
I'm aware. I'm not sure if it was on. Okay.
What do you think? Is it just hidden in plain sight? Are the ancients trying to, build a library of information for us to see and, to have it preserved for us so we can decipher it and try to figure out what's going on?
I do really appreciate this question because, the title of the panel gives a bit of a predetermined outcome for what all this is. But I like that you, instead of just saying we're going to only talk about ancient aliens, I like that we're discussing other aspects of our reality, other potentials. And of course, the universe is a vast and incredible place, and there must be infinite amounts of life. I mean, I think there's strong evidence that it speculates about even like octopus and squid, that there's strange aspects of them that may have come from somewhere else, like Titan or something. But I actually think a lot of that conversation is noise. It's noise to me because it distracts us away from discussing all of this on a higher level, But not only on this higher level, it distracts us from discussing what the evidence, in my opinion, really shows. And it's not about us having this question about whether we're alone or not. I don't think that's even a question anymore. The real question I think we need to ask ourselves is all of the ancient megalithic technology, the ancient teachings, all of the great murals that show winged gods and all these great deities from Sumer to the ancient Inca to the ancient Egyptians all the way through the Greeks. What about the fact that those similarities share nearly identical aspects in nearly every culture around the world? So then I asked that question, like, well, where do gray aliens fit in? Where does all that fit in? Well, I personally think a lot of that is noise. And I think it's distracting us away from looking at it in a different angle. First of all,
let me ask you real quick so I can understand. Are you saying is the question noise or is the answer noise?
I think the focus is noise. I think that we're looking in the wrong way.
Right.
So your question when we first came in here, when we first sat down, I believe is spot on.
Right.
Who are these great teachers, these great benefactors of humanity that have left us the greatest teachings we ever knew? The ways to find our way home, the ways to understand who we are. Because I think the question of who they are is really the question of who we are.
That's right.
And I think it's one and the same. And so I think instead of thinking about these external groups from star systems that are vast distances away coming here and creating something like us, perhaps we need to look at more like we're in the image of them. And that perhaps it's far greater than just the randomness of some small jewel of a planet in the vastness of the universe that doesn't matter, and that there's infinite amounts of that. Perhaps the Earth and the solar system and our story is far more important than just that. Instead of thinking of us in an endless sea of sand grains in an endless ocean, perhaps we should see it as the Earth is a great stage in the cosmos, and that our story is playing out in the greatest story ever made. And when I say that, it's because I've studied the cuneiform tablets for years and years and years, studying the greatest translators in history and the greatest understanding of what was left behind in our past before it was rewritten by monotheistic religions and other groups that came later. We have to go back to the very core of where it started to understand where it began. And that takes us back to this understanding that we may be part of something that's far greater than just some kind of green men that come here. But more or less, what I'm finding when I study ancient sites, like I'm looking throughout Lake Vaughan and ancient Ionis Temple, with these winged gods that are passing the knowledge of higher ascension and the first cross in history. What are they trying to tell us? I think they're trying to tell us that we're far greater than we understand. That we're actually left here in a way where everything is engineered for our growth and our maturity of our consciousness. And then instead of looking at this like we're just some infinite place that doesn't matter, perhaps it's more of like the great stage of everything.
Whoo, man, Matt LaCroix. Hey, Matt. Are you sure they're green, though? Let me ask you a question.
I don't think they're green.
Let me ask you a question. Yeah, are you suggesting, and I don't want to put words in my mouth, but this is the way that I feel.
Yep.
But it sounds like what you are suggesting is that we are looking at us, and that maybe DNA and chemistry is indeed universal,
yeah,
and it is everywhere. So why would we be surprised if they had 2 arms and 2 legs?
Well,
and green skin.
Imagine this for a moment. Just put aside this predetermined conceptions. Imagine the universe has this blueprint creator that is left behind in the golden ratio and every aspect of this hidden mathematical design. So there is a creator, but that creator is more offhands. That creator is more of like lay the blueprint and then let things unfold with a certain code embedded in it for perhaps a predetermined outcome, but how you get there is a little bit unknown.
Right, right.
And imagine though that creator has other creator extensions of that being.
To allow things to be natural.
Yes. Now imagine that universe, instead of being random, has the blueprint for that design, but there still need to be almost like gardeners.
Right.
Okay? Now, not the gardener term like the gray alien gardener term, but the gardeners of vast power beyond our comprehension, literally creator gods of the universe, that seems like they came here and designed our solar system with this perfect ratio, harmonic ratio of the size of the Earth, the Moon, and the Sun, to create something, right? And it's interesting to me how the terrestrial planet of Earth right now has the most amount of quartz, silica, of any planet we know in the universe. Quartz is like a giant energy resonant field. It's a giant crystal. What kind of creation could you do in a place like that? And that's why the more that I've been looking at it, the more that I've come to this conclusion of, I think we're looking at this wrong, is that I think that they, as the powerful creators in this universe, created us as an experiment. I think we are them. I think they created us to experience a physical reality in this world, as an experience to see what would happen if you took a powerful creator God, put it into a body in a physical reality, stripped away every gift it had, and then made it forget everything it knew. What kind of story would that come out, right?
Matt freaks me out.
Just imagine. We are them and they created us.
But yeah, that's amazing.
Can I add one more point to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so why are we so violent? Why are we so disconnected? Why do we not understand oneness with the earth and with the universe? And what happened? That bond of heaven on earth, that connection we used to have to understand who we are, what we are doing, building incredible temples and pyramids aligned to the stars. We forgot that because our planet was hit by catastrophes and they wiped out that memory of who we were.
That's right.
And that's part of that journey. Now, the whole purpose, though, of all of this, I believe that the keys were handed to us long ago and we lost them. And the whole goal now is so that we can consciously evolve with all of these things on this great stage so that one day we'll finally be ready to step up and finally take on the responsibility that we've been groomed for all along.
Yeah, well said, Matt. Well said. Congratulations on the book.
Appreciate it.
You know, William, Matt brings up a really good point. When we look at the advancements of cultures around the world where these great strides were made, and not only in knowledge and in math, but in theater, in writing, in creativity, in the arts, were done around areas that didn't have weapons, right? There were 1,000 years of no wars. There's no weapons at Göbekli Tepe, right? At the time of Akhenaten, it was about personal growth and learning and loving each other and expanding the mind and understanding. That's what we've forgotten. That's exactly what Matt's talking about. We had these explosions and then amnesia. And how did we go from those beautiful, peaceful times into a thing called bullets? How does that happen? But is the evidence in plain sight?
Yeah, I totally believe the evidence is in plain sight, and I think that the word that we're all seeking for is transformation. I mean, this is the reason I believe any extraterrestrial beings were here was to assist in the transformation and indeed the ascension of the human species. That's very clear in the record. And most of your Anunnaki researchers know that they have no real understanding of that aspect of the story, but it's really critical at this time, especially as we're now looking at merging with AI and turning ourselves into robots so we can travel out into space. But all the ancients were really keying on our body as a transformational apparatus, and this is the knowledge that was lost, but this is the knowledge that's now returning at this time. And it's a lot for people to think that, wait a minute, I'm in a biological machine here that's capable of dissolving into 5-colored rainbow light and projecting myself to another world and phasing back into a physical flesh and blood body. But that's what's been in the record for thousands of years. And that's how they got here originally. I mean, I'm an advocate for ancient aliens and the ancient astronaut theory that they were flesh and blood extraterrestrials. Yeah, that's possible, but how did they get here? is one of the real questions. They didn't come in generational starships. They came through wormholes. They're interdimensional time travelers. They're Stargate traveling time travelers. From the Anunnaki all the way through Jesus, all the way up into Padmasambhava in the 8th century. This is very clear. This is how the most advanced beings are traveling anyway, and that's what they've encoded within us. When we talk about keys within us, this is what they wanted us to do.
Let me ask you a question while I've got you on this. Today, we have an understanding, because of Hollywood, books, science fiction, storytelling, folklore, that the idea of ET invading this planet is what comes first in the thought of contact. But 5,000 years ago, you don't have that knowledge base, and you wouldn't freak out if you made contact. It would be the same thing as meeting from somebody from the other side of the lake. You wouldn't freak out, would you?
No, and they had something that they were absolutely using in the ancient world that's now returning as well, which is psychedelics. This is how they're making contact with extraterrestrial beings. It's through consciousness. They're traveling to...
Did you say that coming from you? I need you to say that word again.
Psychedelic. S-Y-C-H-E-D-E-L.
It's like my dad saying it.
Yeah.
Do you understand the word? I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is something that's really vital at this time. And this is why our planet's about to be awash and why psilocybin's being descheduled. This is very integral to the whole disclosure moment at this time. We've got to expand our consciousness.
To free your mind.
These
Have you?
Of course.
Yeah.
Come to my Star Walkers talk tomorrow.
But you know what's interesting about that? I don't want to get sideways into psychedelics. Oh, that didn't even sound right. Did the ancients know how to access another dimension, another world that is right in front of us? They did that, and science is trying to get to an 11th dimension. They're trying to access a parallel world.
Right.
Well, the ancients had the recipes for this for a very long time.
Absolutely. And again, it goes back to the plant medicine that they were using. There's no question about it. Even Sitchin said cannabis was brought here by the Anunnaki. So this is an integral part of the story that is now coming into the fold that will expand human awareness and consciousness beyond anything we've previously been able to.
Is that true? Matt, is that in the Sumerian tablets?
I've never read that before, but I will tell you that
Have you studied psychedelics and history of cannabis?
I do want to echo what William's saying. I think that they're here to allow us to have a way home. Because I think the purpose here is we forget everything and we lose everything in the material, physical world. And I think they're a way to allow our mind to free and go back to this realization of what we're part of that's greater. And I think they're teaching plants.
Yeah.
But they have to be taken in the greatest responsibility and respect that they deserve.
We're questioning our own we discover our abilities, we realize that we can tap into that source directly. We don't need others, we don't need them, they don't need, it's all within us. So it's really trying to understand.
That's important, Carol, that's important.
Yeah. So it's really trying to understand not so much their technology, but trying to understand the overall universal design of reality.
Well
Yeah.
Well, can we thank you, Caroline? Andrew, when we talk about Göbekli Tepe, when we talk about Göbekli Tepe, when it transcends the orthodox academic dogma that we have been fed for so many years. Matt just brought it up, the Sumerian tablets. We've talked about Giza and the timelines in 3000 BC, 5,000 years ago. That's the start of everything. Göbekli Tepe pops up. It wasn't supposed to exist. It pops up 7,000 years older than Giza. Clearly, that is been placed for us to understand. It seems to be deliberately buried for us to uncover later and to decipher. Now, when I talk about ancient secrets, I think that Göbekli Tepe is the one thing that's an enigma. It wasn't supposed to exist, but clearly there it is. What are the ancients trying to tell us with that site?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, does everybody know Göbekli Tepe here? Who doesn't? You'll basically know.
Okay, one doesn't.
Well, okay, well that is actually quite amazing.
That's amazing.
Because this is a site in southeastern Turkey that has almost become as important as the pyramids of Giza or Pumapunka in Peru, in Bolivia. So I find that quite incredible in itself. But I mean, archaeologists, when they look at Göbekli Tepe, they originally thought this is an anomaly, this is a one-off. Quite clearly the people of this region decided that they had nothing better to do with their time than create these monuments with these incredible T-shaped pillars, some of which are 18.5 feet tall, weigh 15 to 20 tons apiece, put beautiful carvings of animals and creatures of the natural world, make them anthropomorphic. And clearly they did it just for a laugh, I mean, maybe on a Saturday night they got together and, for a dance in there or something like that. I mean, that's what the archaeologists, I'll be honest, they couldn't handle it. And there's a very famous clip online where Graham Hancock is at a conference with Zahi Hawass, the big bad of Egyptology. And, and Zahi Hawass is asked about Göbekli Tepe.
Who was on stage sound checking?
Was that you?
No.
What? Who was then?
Sirius, wrote the book.
Robert Temple.
Oh, Robert Temple. Yeah, Robert. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
he's on, and that's when Zahi goes. What's this Göbekli Tepe that you speak about? I know nothing about it. It's like, wait a minute. And Graham says, just let the guy do his presentation tonight. And that's the dogma that we're referring to here. He didn't want anybody to interrupt, right, the information flow that's coming out of Giza and what was happening.
Yeah, and I mean, so Zahi Hawass basically admits he didn't know anything about Göbekli Tepe.
Oh, it was Robert Bauval.
Robert Bauval, yeah.
That's who was on.
And that's really important to know. What it means is that people outside of the archaeological community of working in Turkey, generally the German Archaeological Institute, Göbekli Tepe means nothing to them. They don't understand it. They can't put it into context with the rise of civilization. So archaeologists took it as a one-off, something that they could essentially ignore. But what's so important is that we now have not just a second site, but as many as a dozen sites in the area around Şanlıurfa, the big ancient city there, including obviously Göbekli Tepe, which all have T-shaped pillars. And one of these sites, called Karahan Tepe, which I'll be talking about tomorrow in my lecture, is even weirder than Göbekli Tepe. It's even stranger. It's quite clear that the people that were there were going much deeper into their rituals and ceremonies. They quite literally created rooms and chambers out of the bedrock with these incredible pillars that rise up out of the floor of them, that are made out of the rock itself. I mean, this is something that is beyond belief as far as our understanding of what was going on right at the end of the last ice age. And yet they were doing this. So why? What were they doing? I mean, clearly they were trying to achieve something. And I think it was deep connection with the cosmos. Not only were they trying to synchronize their lives with the turning of the heavens, but their source amongst the stars themselves. And all of the indications from Karahan Tepe, more than Göbekli Tepe, is that they were trying to connect with galactic center. And I say that because that's what the alignment suggests. And what have we got at galactic center? A supermassive black hole called Sagittarius A star. And Rupert Sheldrake, the great free thinker of our times, a biologist, has proposed that that supermassive black hole, and indeed probably every other supermassive black hole at the centre of every galaxy, is a thinking, living being. He refers to it as the galactic mind, and that this galactic mind is in some way connected with the creation of the galaxy around it. Not only does it produce the matter to create the galaxy, but it also protects it, almost like a mother protecting its creation within its own galaxy. And therefore, as a thinking, living entity, it is still there today. It's almost like a localized form of God, if you like. And the ancients were very much aware of this. Many different secret cults and religions spoke about what they referred to as what we might call a supernal or a hypercosmic sun, the sun behind the sun, and that it existed in the primordial darkness, and that it was God, it was the original God, and that it manifested into physical existence as a snake or a serpent. And this serpent they saw as encircling the world itself, a world encircling serpent. Its head was the galactic bulge that corresponds with galactic center, which corresponds with the galactic mind, and this supermassive black hole at the center of our own galaxy. That's what these people at Karahan Tepe were trying to connect with, the ultimate source of life on Earth.
Could I
Wow.
add something?
Linda? Yes. I have to say this. I want to state the obvious really quick. I'm a lot smarter tonight because I'm sitting next to Andrew friggin' Collins and listening to, I don't know if it's the accent. I don't know what it is. But Linda, well, you the table's yours. You've been to Göbekli Tepe.
Yeah.
What and back in the beginning, when this started to take off, you were right there. What is it that? Well, you can add, you can do your thing, but this is the question, Linda. What is it that is being spoken to us? There is something there, and it's obvious. We just don't know what that is. What do you think is there?
Shock and the group that I was in, we got there in June of 2012. And he wanted us to have the experience of early morning. And he suggested that we go up to a certain place on the hill that would then be looking down into Göbekli Tepe.
Mm-hmm.
And to watch where the sun, as the sun rose, what would happen down in Göbekli Tepe. And I was staring at the sun direction, and then I turned as soon as it came up. And there was only one, just the tip of one of the T bars, they're like this, that had sun. And I started down. This was to be our first moment to get into it. We had not been into it before. And as I was walking toward where the sun was touching one of the limestone, I realized that in my life, usually I would get feelings and energies out of any place I've ever been. And I've been protected by knowing if I felt comfortable or uncomfortable. And I realized that as I got down into the very, very bottom of where everything was sort of like this, I couldn't feel anything. It was this, and remains to this day in my memory vividly, that I had never been in any place on this planet, and I've been in many, many countries. I'd never ever had no feeling. It was just strangeness. And shock came down right behind me. And I said to him, I just can't feel anything here. I don't understand what this place.
Do you think it was the time of day in relation to the sun?
No, because we were there for the whole rest of the day and it
Right,
never
right,
changed.
right.
But this led to our having a dialogue about what was there that was recognizable from other archaeology on the planet, which is called the Anunnaki purses.
Mm-hmm.
The Anunnaki purse was in carvings. And I remember saying to Shock, this seems, if it's anything, this is an Anunnaki creation, or Anunnaki / Sumerian / who exactly made it, but it was definitely had that
Those purses,
Anunnaki feeling.
Linda, those purses are in every culture on every continent on this planet. And that's a connection. You guys know what we're talking about, right? The purses, right? Show of hands. The purses. The whole room knows about this. This isn't anything new. And you look, I don't care where you go to. I just got back from Peru. I'm looking around and I'm seeing purses. What's the connection?
They're not universal. They always seem to link back to the issue of, is this more Anunnaki, more evidence of Anunnaki controlling, interacting with this whole planet?
Right.
What does that mean?
I just got to know.
Jimmy, I'd love to comment on that.
Oh, okay, Matt, you're first. What's up with the purses? You're next, William. What's up with the purses?
Well, it's really interesting, and I know, of course, Andrew can jump in on this because he's an expert on Göbekli Tepe, but what is being discussed is on what's called Pillar 43. It's a specific pillar that has a constellation of Cygnus above it. Now, what's interesting about Cygnus, that Andrew, of course, knows all about this, is that Cygnus is called the Northern Cross. What's interesting about that is that the pillars from Göbekli Tepe mimic, like Linda was saying, Sumerian and ancient Sumerian or pre-Assyrian civilization drawings, because we see those same handbags all around the world, whether it's La Venta, Mexico with the Olmec, or throughout South America, throughout especially Mesopotamia. But it seems to be, to me, it's this passing of like the ultimate knowledge. If you were to imagine, if you were going to try to show what it would be like to have all knowledge, like how would you do it? Like, how would you show that you had all knowledge, but you wanted to pass knowledge? They seem to show it through two symbols. One, they're always holding this handbag, and then they're passing like a pine cone, okay? Now, I believe the pine cone represents the seeds of knowledge. So basically, if you were to pass the ultimate knowledge of everything, what could you grow? What kind of garden could you grow if you taught about laws and rules in agriculture, metallurgy, astronomy, everything? Like, what could you create? But then what could you create if you lowered the ultimate knowledge of us reaching higher states of consciousness and ascension? I think you're creating infinite possibilities. And I think that's why we see it all around the world, because we see this correlation with this group known as the Apkallu. All around the world, they have different names, but essentially they come down to this traveling group that seems to have gone around the world and created civilizations and then moved on. Now, getting back to Pillar 43, on that pillar, it has 3 handbag symbols. Now, I know there's some interpretation of what that could mean, but I think what it means is that because the handbag symbols are only on Pillar 43, none of the other pillars at Göbekli Tepe have them. And the fact that the Northern Cross of Cygnus is right there, and we happen to know that Deneb, the Northern Star, is one of the brightest stars in the night sky. And when we look into that, you find out it also might have some kind of a portal connection, like Andrew was talking about too. So I believe that it's possible that they're talking about where knowledge might have come from. Is that there may have been the ultimate knowledge and might possibly a connection to where even the Anuna could have come from some kind of a portal or gateway through Cygnus.
Could be, but I think it's a fashion statement too as well. Let's not forget about the Hermes belts that they are wearing.
And the wristwatches.
That's Hermes.
Oh yeah.
I go back to what?
And nobody's got a better haberdasher than William Henry. What are the handbags representing?
I go back to Geo Windegarden. He was a German scholar in 1930s, looked at all of these stories. He wrote a book called The Ascension of the Prophet and the Heavenly Book. So he finds all of these mortals like you and I, they're researchers, they're looking for this quest for knowledge. And at some point, a higher, like a divine being will enter to their consciousness and offer them a book. Often it's edible because it's psychedelics. This is what expands our consciousness. This is the pathway to opening portals in our own consciousness. You're not going to walk through some star door there without expanding your consciousness first. And so they're delivering these edible ways of expanding our consciousness. We've got all of the receptors in our brain. We endogenously produce dimethyltryptamine, which is what opens the portals in all the ancient stories. They're always eating something. They're going into a burning bush. They're going into this gateway, and it's in their own mind. And they're traveling to other worlds through their own consciousness. And that's what the handbag represents. They put the edible book in the handbag, and they're like Dorothy going down the yellow brick road now. They're good.
I didn't know William Henry was so hip.
Just all you gotta do is read.
Yeah.
Just read the history of what the plants, the plant medicine, why they're in front of a tree, why they're gardeners. All of these stories are all telling us exactly the same thing. Here's how you do it. And it's not about getting high. It's about activating our consciousness.
Oh, you just killed it for me, man.
What a more beautiful way to do it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Let's swing it over to this side. I do want opinions here because I remember, this panel is not about me, but everybody here listens to the show. And as I started to look at and research the evidence, and I'm looking at these handbags, and of course the belts, and the fact that there was a fashion-conscious T-pillar there at Göbekli Tepe, right? The flowing robes, the belts, the thing. How at 12,000 years ago, instead of wearing animal skins, you put together a belt? A belt? Really? A belt buckle? And then go and look at the purses, and yes, the Anunnaki and other cultures around the world. The purse is the exact same depiction. So is it a nuclear suitcase? Is it DNA? Is it, like Matt was just saying, a symbol of knowledge and power? But clearly, it's right there. If there's an ancient secret, it's with these handbags. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there was obviously differences of opinion relating to these handbags, and to be honest, in each different culture they have different meanings. I mean, for instance, amongst the Olmec, the handbags probably did contain some kind of psychedelic that was used for the kings and the shamans to enter into the otherworld or the underworld, which is why you see them coming out of the mouth of this creature, generally some kind of jaguar, basically. And that's why they've got like these helmets on, because they're quite literally emerging out of a shamanic state. Whereas in Assyria and also in Eastern Turkey, Matt talks about Lake Van, the Urartian culture, the handbags there contain sacred oils which are sprinkled by the cones on a tree. That tree is the tree of life, and what Matt said is exactly correct. These are divine beings that are sprinkling the knowledge and wisdom on the tree of knowledge of good and evil, if you want, or the tree of life in other contexts, which is something that we then feed upon as a psychedelic, as we were saying earlier. And the ones on Pillar 43, I don't think they're handbags at all. I think that they're actually structures. They are probably buildings, because the actual, the handles themselves are offset to one side. Now,
how many handbags have you seen that have got offset handles? I mean, you wouldn't be able to carry them right. So I don't believe that they're handbags at all. Sorry, Graham Hancock. But, to me, they are structures. They probably do represent some kind of cosmic house. In ancient Sumerian astronomy, there were 3 different houses of the sky. It may well be that this was a proto-form of that. But quite clearly, everything on Pillar 43, which is the key to understanding the cosmology of the Göbekli Tepe culture, which the archaeologists refer to today as Tash Tepala, which means the Stone Hills culture. That is the key. If we can understand Pillar 43, we can solve the mysteries of Göbekli Tepe.
Yeah, but, okay. Yeah, sure. But you've clearly never seen a Louis Vuitton knockoff. Linda, I feel uncomfortable talking to you about psychedelics, but what do the handbags represent to you?
I think that they have something to do with technology that is allowing them to move point to point, and that the Anunnaki and all that came after them genetically have that ability to move from matter, 3D, into a 4D or 5D and back, and that there's something about that handbag, that pine cone, the tree of life, their relationship with the universe as a consciousness, that to me, that handbag relates to how they move. Like the Alcubierre warp drive.
Sure.
You have to be able to have a certain structure, you have to be able to pull space to you. When you are doing Alcubierre warp drive, you are literally
Opening and closing at the same time.
You're
Yeah.
you're literally pulling. You'd be pulling a couple of light years that direction this way, and you have a hill mathematically behind you of energy, and you have a hole in front of you. And when this interaction that is literally pulling space occurs, the energy that goes faster than light has to do with the hill of energy. That's the way it's drawn. It's not a physical hill, it's a hill of energy into a hole, and the craft is being pulled and the energy is moving all at the same time, and that's how they can move point to point.
Can I, let me ask you something. Everybody in here can freak out with me. We've mentioned pine cones a few times. We all see them. But what is a sculpture of a pine cone doing at the Vatican?
It could also be a hand grenade.
It came from the Temple of Isis and Serapis in Rome. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. They're the same guys that built the Serapeum and.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not crazy, am I?
No.
Right?
No.
It's like, again, hidden in plain sight.
Sure.
What is it? Okay, anyway.
And the mitre hat was the original hat that was worn by the Nomo and the Dogon, just so you know. The mitre hat that the Pope wears.
Is that right?
Yes. So that goes back even deeper to add to the pine cone, too. Because they also, the Nomo are shown passing the pine cone, and they're wearing the same hat.
Oh, right.
They have both.
Right.
Well, and one of the things about the tall whites that is described by some of the people in the abductions is that they know the science of not just pulling space in our dimension and moving point to point. They know how to go into another dimension and execute a space change there that will then take them maybe 150 light years here. So it is physics within a dimension, but it's also physics using as cushion shots other dimensions to go much further. And all of that would have been to them part of everything that they did, and that's why that person.
So the other day, before people listen to that and go, okay, now we're taking things too far. We're not. Last week, paper was published, and that wormholes not only exist, but their purpose is to connect other universes.
Yes.
And I'm reading this, and I'm like, now wait a minute here. I remember Matt and I last year got a little spirited discussion that we all have. How did they get here? It takes a long time. Why would they spend that much, to get here? Well, they do it because it's easy. And I'm always imagining between galaxies. This paper presupposes that there are multiple universes, and to get between the universes, it's wormholes that are doing the work.
Right.
And this is what the data, the numbers in physics support. Now, if that doesn't go straight to crazy town, I don't know what does. But this is science. It sounds like it's our community talking like this, and it's not. This is what's going on in the universities around the world.
Yeah, it's real physics.
I don't think there's any doubt. There's ancient mysteries is not my specific area of expertise.
I'm glad, because I didn't want to talk to you about Kate Spade handbags either.
No. But I mean, I'm learning a lot from being up with these incredible people here. But I don't think there's anyone that, for example, looks at this subject from inside of government or the military or the intelligence community that doesn't intuitively feel that there is some sort of connection with the ancient world and ancient mysteries and esoteric lost knowledge. And in a sense, that's what Ancient Aliens is increasingly doing over the most recent seasons, is bridging the gap between the old and the new. And I just like to make a couple of points. I mean, firstly, it is absolutely true that a lot of very important people in government do watch Ancient Aliens, and William, I think Chatham House rules and all that. But when we did the show in Tyson's, we had a lot of people, interesting players, shall we say,
Who's who?
in the audience, and one or two in the green room, I should say. So, but this ties in perhaps with this idea Danny mentioned. The discussions that he's having where this phrase catastrophic disclosure has popped up, and I've heard people like Carl Nell talk about it and others. And one wonders what this catastrophic disclosure could be. And I think I want to throw in two thoughts on this. Firstly, definitions. There is, we've all heard, I think Linda, you referenced 2027. There are a lot of rumors that there is a sort of structured plan to disclose, and that we're in that plan now, and all the things that are happening in Congress particularly are part of that plan. And 2027 is a date that's been bandied around. But, their events always intrude, and unexpected things happen, and catastrophic disclosure could mean just it comes out and the plan goes off the rails. And when you talk to people, they say, yeah, bring it on, we can handle it. And I had a discussion with someone who's connected with some of this, and I said, look, one suggestion I would like to feed into the system. You can have all the plans you like for 2027. Have an emergency if it starts to break or some event intrudes. Have a plan ready to go and be implemented within 24 hours.
Right.
And I was told that's been fed into the system. I want to make one other point before I hand it back. And that's the idea that there is perhaps a dark side to this. Because I think it goes beyond, it's the old, my fellow Americans, people of the world, we're not alone. There's no problem with saying that. You could ring fence the tech if you didn't want it to get to an adversary. Even the backstory, the fact that people have lied, maybe people have even been killed as a result, that's not a reason for not telling us that we're not alone. So when you listen to people like Lou Elizondo, who was asked, you know, if you could sum up some of what you know about this in one word, what would that word be? And he replied, the word is somber. And so I put it to you that there might be a dark side to this, and that's why the government is pushing back. And we saw some of that pushback last week with Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, former director of Arrow, now on his, what I call jokingly, his little media tour. But make no mistake about it, a big hand grenade, not a pine cone, a big metaphorical hand grenade is about to be dropped into the middle of the UFO community by the government, because the Historical Record Review, Volume 1, is going to drop maybe as soon as next week, and it is going to be brutal. It's going to be the single most skeptical government document since those 2 US Air Force reports on Roswell in the 90s. And it's a sign of the ongoing battle for narrative control, not in the UFO community, but inside government, about how to handle this.
Do you mean contradicting the truths that we know?
Yes, absolutely. The Historical Record Review will say, we looked into all these allegations of crash retrieval programs, reverse engineering programs, and we didn't find anything. It's all nonsense. That will drop imminently, and it will be brutal.
But why are they choosing lies now?
Because there's a faction in government that A, doesn't want it to come out, and B, is afraid of it, whatever it might be.
Let me interject
Because
something.
it comes with the dark side.
That is timed with another press release that came out 2 weeks ago that stated, and this was from the president of the Professional Astronomers Union of the world, who said, we need to have systems in place on how to deal with the psychosis that will result from when a professional astronomer sees extraterrestrial intelligence for the first time. That we are looking deeper and deeper into space, and it is inevitable that somebody is going to see something, and we need to have protocols on how to deal with it when that happens. All of this information is happening at the same time. What was the headline yesterday? TESS found another exoplanet 137 light years away that is in the conservative Goldilocks zone, an even more narrow band of Goldilocks, 137 light years away. If we look at that through a telescope, we're looking at a planet 137 years ago. That's modern. We are looking at their status, and if they are looking at us, they're looking at Earth in 1900. They're looking at a modern version of us.
And they may have, through James Webb, an actual image of artificial light on a planet orbiting Procyon B.
Now, what is this chatter? Is everybody familiar with what we're talking about right now? Show of hands. Do you guys understand what's happening? Okay, there, with the James Webb Space Telescope, its ability to study and to look deep and deep into history and to our past, this is something that can't be measured. But they have found 2 different star systems, and one of them is TRAPPIST-1. This is an international body of scientists that is working with the James Webb. It's not just the United States, it's international. 2 different groups are fighting over 2 different planets that may support life and how this is about to drop into the media. What Linda is pointing out, this chatter that we are hearing within the researchers of our community, is that they can't agree on which planet to disclose.
Right.
And that one of these planets shows lights like Tokyo.
And
This is getting ready to drop, and they're arguing on how to get this done.
yeah, and E1, which is the middle planet at TRAPPIST, It's
There's what,
so-
7, right?
There's
When-
7.
7.
Planets, and they go, A is the sun, B, C, D, E is the middle planet, and they call it E1. E1 is the one that's very Earth-like, probably has oceans and land, and they may already have a photograph they haven't shared of artificial light there.
And I don't know how many papers there are and what peer review is going on and who's going to win that race. But obviously, if you follow the social media accounts of people like British astronaut Timothy Peake, various astronomers and astrophysicists have been dropping hints for weeks that there is going to be at least one paper. There's always going to be a debate about is it a biosignature or a technosignature. I mean, a biosignature, you get into all sorts of debates about, but you will get skeptics pushing back and saying that some of the chemistry could be geological, but a technosignature, something like a Dyson sphere, that would be game over, slam dunk.
Yeah, the lights of Tokyo. Right? Let me ask the audience first. Can you handle the truth? Yes. Can you handle the truth? Yes. What is it that telling us that something doesn't exist or that it does exist, why is that in the control of somebody else? That's the part I don't get. How can you hold basic information about nature and make that a secret? We're talking about nature. It's nature. It's not anything else. It's not a bank account number. It's nature. Why hold that from us? Mr. Collins, you're nodding your head. Why would they hold that from us?
Trillionaires are running Earth.
You think that's it? You think it's money? Easy answer.
I mean, Linda and I.
Who said religion?
We were talking about this just before we actually came up on stage, weren't we? You know, it's a case of these trillionaires. They don't need more money. They don't need a few more thousand or a few million, dollars, pounds, whatever it is, euros. They want data. They want absolute control, and with that control, the human body almost becomes just a vehicle and almost obsolete as we head towards the whole concept of transhumanism. The fact that eventually the only thing that will really matter is AI itself and whatever has been transferred into AI. I think that probably, Linda, you want to say something about that?
Elon Musk is now lifting up the top cranium of brains to experiment with Neuralink, his company, being able to have, it will be some sort of like an electrode that will be in a network, and the brain of the human will then be able to deal directly, they'll think the computer, they'll think the words, and Neuralink will allow complete interaction through the brain and whatever is around. And it is the next huge step of replacing Homo sapiens sapien with AI.
Man, William Henry, his temperature just went up. How you doing, William?
I don't want it to happen at all.
No, I know.
I think we're on a horrible road,
Right.
and we're headed toward our self-destruction. And I really honestly believe that maybe the tall whites give a damn. They may be the only ones who do. And that we have to be one of the damnedest, most difficult things, because humanity can be so great and loving, and that we are so creative, and yet we can also be the dark devil. And the mix of the two is either under some kind of a program that the tall whites perhaps are overseeing, and they feel a certain responsibility because we are the genetic manipulation product of things like the Anunnaki. I'm convinced of it.
Linda, don't ever change. Ever. Linda Moulton Howe, everybody. Seriously. Happy birthday. Is it just me, though, Linda? Let me address something. I need everybody, if you leave here with one thing tonight, okay, we're talking about aliens, we're talking about ET, AI, okay? This is what is happening. Elon owns his own social media company. Elon owns his own internet with Starlink. Elon owns the rockets that implement and fly our own astronauts into space, and
He owns the
inserts his own internet.
Yeah.
He has Neuralink, a brain-computer interface, and he owns an AI robot company called Optimus, and he owns the largest artificial intelligence automobile company controlling transportation in the world, and he is building semi-trucks. Is it just me? Or is that just a little bit too much for one man to have at his disposal? Isn't that crazy? And that guy, I'm on a soapbox, are you guys with me? Yes. That guy said 5 years ago, the biggest danger to the human race is not the atomic bomb, it's artificial intelligence. He said that, scared the crap out of us. Last week he tells Tesla, I want a pay raise or I'm taking my artificial intelligence research somewhere else. I'm just saying.
Let me add one thing from dear Jim Mars, one of my best friends.
I wish he was here right now listening to this.
Jim was just, and we had some of the deepest, most profound discussions about things. And one night he called, it was about 2 months before he died. And his last book was out about the economy of the world. And he said, I'm working with this Swiss accountant. And he said, we now have tracked the owners of all of the barter system of the planet, meaning all the money, to 28 families. And I said, and how many are ETs? And Jim was laughing. It was the greatest moment because there was something about 28 families ultimately are responsible for the entire barter system, and how easy for extraterrestrials to be in control of planets and never even be in our face.
Well, is that the case? Thank you for that, Linda. William, let me ask you, and Caroline, I want you to jump in on this too. As we start to wrap this up. Artificial intelligence is something that we need to pay attention to right now. It's like a runaway train, and we're not really focusing on that. Right. We're allowing money to make the decisions for this. All right, okay, I get that. That's another conversation at another time. But anybody more advanced than us has already been down this road. Yeah. Right? And so is it something that we could learn from, or is it something that we just need to pursue? That if we're going to keep up with ET, let alone the Joneses or China, that this is something that we have to focus on. We can't be in second place.
Right? AI is a lie. It could become our ally. I mean, or can it become our ally? That's the question. But it's a weapon, first and foremost. I mean, NASA, I remember...
Well, that's now. That's in the here and now.
No, I know.
Here, but is it a weapon for ET?
Probably.
Really?
You know, yeah, I started tracking this. I first wrote about AI and transhumanism in 2002. And this is when Dennis Bushnell, who is NASA's high priest of technology, gathered Raytheon and all the weapons manufacturers in a room in Orlando, Florida, and said, here's what we're going to be writing checks for over the coming years. And he laid out the history of humanity. 10,000 years ago, we're hunter-gatherers, and we go through the industrial revolutions, and now we're in the third industrial revolution. This is year 2000. Most of us are still asleep then. We're watching crop circles and things like this happen. And here's Dennis Bushnell saying, here's the history of humanity. We're going virtual as a race. And it's all going to be AI-driven. We're going to become AI beings. We're going to become virtual beings. And This is 20 years ago, okay? And so I started ringing the bell in 2002 about it. I got ran out of this conference actually 10 years ago for suggesting that humanity might not survive AI. It's like, what are you talking about? You know, this kind of thing. Now,
Didn't actually happen.
but I'm saying, you know, this was an upsetting idea 10 years ago, and we
Right.
should have had this conversation tonight 10 years ago.
Right,
Now it's too late.
right.
But it is a weapon. It's driven by the military. It's coming out of DOD, out of DARPA, into Google and Facebook, which are arms of the U.S. military. That's all they are. They're doing the bidding, and I call them the hive. It's Washington, Wall Street, Beijing, and Silicon Valley, all married together.
Woo! Okay,
And
now,
it comes from, it is an alien technology, in my opinion.
what's your dog's name?
Nothing. Where's my?
Gigolo. Look, came running right out. Gigolo. Okay. Okay,
Can I
as we wrap, we're gonna wrap. We're out of time, and I need to clear this room because we've got the reception.
On that really
Can I
like
just
fear
say something like
based.
real quick, please?
Caroline, I swear, if you text me tonight. Okay, go ahead.
I am gonna.
It's got to
No, I
be
just
a
have
few
to say,
seconds.
like, it's true that AI presents some dangers, but you have to remember that consciousness is omnipresent, omniscient, and I mean, like, it's everywhere. It's infinite.
Therefore, we don't
And
need AI.
No, that's not that we don't need AI. AI is finite. It's consciousness. We are putting information into AI devices and technology and software. So what I'm trying to say is that your consciousness is infinite and limitless. And so something that's finite can never supersede its creator.
Thank you, Caroline.
Does that make sense?
It does,
will
it does, it
never,
does, it does.
it will
Okay.
never take over consciousness.
Well, no, we're out
Remember
of the
that.
room is being closed down.
Leaving right now.
Okay, so but let me say this. I'm going to say this. Hold on, everybody. We're not done. That you heard it here first. I think dark energy that's forcing the universe to expand is actually consciousness. And you heard that from me first. Okay, really quick. I want a yes or no from each of our panelists. That's it. I don't have any more time. Danny, 2024, the year of disclosure, yes or no?
No, 2028.
2028, Matt LaCroix, 2024, the year of disclosure, yes or no?
Depends on what you're talking about with disclosure.
Yes or no?
No.
No. Caroline Corey,
2026.
2026, William Henry,
I think it's on, yes.
you think it's on? Andrew Collins,
I'll go for 2036.
2036?
Yeah.
I was buying you drinks later. Linda, 2024, is this the year?
I think the ETs are in control, and so it's up to them, not us.
Nick, is 2024 the year?
No.
Really? Okay. Nick, what are you speaking about this weekend?
I'm talking about the societal impact of disclosure.
Linda, what are you talking about this weekend?
I have a whole bunch of important things from whistleblowers, and that's on Monday at the Big Intensive. And then tomorrow, I am doing, and it's not at all hard to look at. It's very important, and it's my overview of animal mutilations and human abductions as part of the main interface between extraterrestrials in this planet and what might be the reason.
Andrew Collins.
Tomorrow, we're talking about Gobekli Tepe, 6 o'clock, okay? This very room, and obviously Karahan Tepe as well. And then on Monday, if you're still here and you want something to do with the intensive, we are going really, really deep. Shape of the universe, dodecahedrons, and the greatest discovery about Stonehenge for a very long time. So I'll see you there. Thank you.
William Henry, what are you speaking about this weekend?
Sunday, Starwalkers, light beings, plasma beings.
Psychedelics?
Monday night, psychedelic
Okay.
sacrament, the use of psychedelics in religious and spiritual purposes throughout time.
Caroline Corey.
Tomorrow at 10 o'clock, I'm going to teach you how to communicate with extraterrestrials if you want, but guides and source. And we're going to bring and download information and find out if it's 2024, 2026.
Matt LaCroix, you spoke earlier. What else are you doing this weekend?
Well, if anybody wants to dig deeper into that amazing research for Eastern Turkey that connects to these symbols around the world, around Lake Vaughan, we are going to be launching a major expedition around the world to 4 countries, Turkey, Egypt, Peru, and Bolivia, with scientists, archaeologists to finally change the narrative of history once and for all. So make sure you check out thestageoftime.com if you want to be involved in that.
Okay, Danny, what are you speaking about this weekend?
I'm going to be talking about the actual disclosure process that's actually taking place in Washington, D.C. right now.
Everybody, please thank our amazing panel. Nick Pope, Linda Moulton Howe, stand up. Stand up. Andrew Collins, Mr. William Henry, Caroline Corey, Matt LaCroix, and Mr. Danny Sheehan. Thank you so much. I'm Yosemite Church. Now we're going to party in this room, so we need to clear it out, and then we're going to come back and have our meet and greet. Thank you so much.